Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do, the usual disclaimers. Now, I am suffering horribly from allergies, folks, and I've been on the phones all day today, so please forgive if you hear like any weird throat sounds. I apologize for that in advance, okay? And for my mug, but you get what you get, right? Don't always want to play the doll, especially when I decide to take an hour and an additional day off because the hours were there. All right, to the disclaimers, shall we? All right, folks, if you are unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign that gets the troubled teen industry, you're going to find all the pertinent links right there in the description box. Please, in particular, take note of the article written by NeuroClastic, a small non for profit started by autistics for autistics. In it, they interviewed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the Judge Rotenberg Center's so called behavior modification program. The Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read that article so much. They threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Read that article, share it on all your social media. Pardon me. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement in regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding just in case the JRC actually decides to see through with their threats. Trigger warning number one: when we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you do got young children present, please make sure to go ahead and utilize the headphones, all right? Trigger warning number two: this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is advised, all right? Okay, so where we left off last time, we are now on comment 7. A comment states that in FDA's executive summary for the panel meeting, we noted that the majority of the behavioral studies identified prior to the panel meeting were confined to small sample sizes or case reports. The comment asserts that these limitations have not stopped the FDA from relying on literature about positive behavioral reinforcement, while the FDA dismisses evidence supportive of ESDs because of those same limitations. Jesus Christ, can I explain it to you like you're two? The reason why they can't rely on those small sample studies that are multiple decades old is because that is the only data out there that is outside the propagandic nonsense that the JRC totes. The reason why the FDA didn't use any larger studies is not because everybody's picking on poor JRC. Would you please take your victim stick out of your hind parts for 5 seconds? And let's deal with what the reality is. The reality is the only studies that exist outside of the JRC are small studies. Probably because nobody is just jumping at the bit to sign themselves up for that shit. Not even back in the 60s and 50s. Okay? They went with what is actually available. To try and say that that somehow made them biased is insane. Now let's move on to this commenter's next point. But you show numerous studies in regards to PBS. That's because the studies in regards to positive behavioral reinforcement, person centered planning, and all the other different types of programs and treatment plans out there that exist and are used by the rest of the world are beyond counting. That should tell you something, shouldn't it? It should tell you that the rest of the world has moved on from this barbaric idea that if you call corporal punishment treatment, that it should be used in order to control people like moi. Okay? Literally, the rest of the planet has moved on. This is why we have decades of literature, data, large case studies, because it is literally the most prevalent form of treatment programs out there, bar none. Okay? That's why. That is the reality of it. It is not the FDA cherry picking. It's literally the FDA had to dig and dig and dig to find any case studies done at all in regards to electric skin shock and behavioral treatments. Okay? The small sampling of what they do produce outside of the JRC were based on small sample sizes, yes. Not because they were looking for small sample sizes, but because that's the only thing that's out there. Okay? The reason why there is a plethora of data, doctoral notes, comments, and what have you on the other treatment programs and plans out there is because that is the current best practice that is standard across the rest of planet Earth. Okay? It's not rocket science. It's not cherry picking. It's not being biased. It's looking at reality. Stop drinking the Kool-Aid. Turn off your victim goggles and look at reality for fuck's sake. Okay? Jeez. It's real simple here, folks. This person is trying to assert that the FDA cherry picked in order to get the small sample studies to make it look like that they checked out the things in regards from how JRC sees things. But really, they were being influenced. Influenced by who? Because according to the JRC, this is all us advocates' fault. Any of the propaganda that you read, any of those Kool-Aid drinking parents that you see in those testimonial videos, they always blame us. Like we have some like ungodly power that shakes the towers of the great. As much as I would love that to be true, that is not reality. The reality of the matter is, it is a miracle of God when we can get any of these people to listen to us at all. The reality of the matter is, you literally have in the UK right now a doctor giving a criminal who murdered a trans person an excuse in the form of autism by calling it an autism spectrum personality disorder, a diagnosis that literally does not exist. Okay? That's the reality. Yes, our influence has grown over the years as we become larger in number. That is true. But we're hardly at the type of power where we can shake the towers of the great. Because if that were actually true, the JRC would have been buried a very, very long time ago. Okay? We influence no one. All right? Okay? Let's talk more about what reality actually is as opposed to what this commenter is trying to infer by trying to make it out like the FDA is biased in our favor. Shall we? It's a very simple fact that there are far more studies, large case studies and small, in support with the current practices within the medical model than there is for the JRC's torture called treatment. Okay? That's not biased, that's facts. If you don't believe me, please go digging. Be my guest. Prove me wrong. Post them in the comment section. Go right ahead. Please make my day. You know what I'm saying? It's not about bias. It's about what data exists. What small information they could find in the JRC's favor is ridiculously outdated. Those are small sample sizes because that's what those institutes, research centers, and what have you had at the time in order to engage in those studies. Because there's not really a crowd that is lining up to put themselves on basically a dog shock collar for humans just to indulge some person wanting to, study the reactions, all right? The reason why the FDA is relying on the things in regards to PBS, person centered planning, all of that is because there is infinitely more literature, more studies, and more data that backs the current medical practices with their own issues. Don't get me started on the insanity of ABA. That is its entirely own subject of hell. But if this is current medical practice, it only makes sense that there's going to be 1,000 times more literature and large case studies in regards to them than there is going to be in regards to aversive therapy, especially aversive therapy by means of electric skin shock just below the lethal limit. Okay? That's not bias. That means there's more current, accurate, can be measured, can be tested, can be refuted and argued evidence, data, and literature out there in regards to medical current practice than there is for JRC's insanity. It's that wonderful thing called facts. You know, the stuff that the JRC tends to be allergic to. All right. Anyone who is insane enough to even try to make this argument, screw it, I had a long work day. You're an idiot. To even try to make this argument, you are an idiot. These people know damn good and well what current practice is within this field. And it is not physical aversive therapy, or as I like to call it, corporal punishment as treatment. All right? That's not reality. That's not current medical accepted types of treatments and programs out there. What is currently accepted right now is the ever growing person centered planning movement within the medical model and outside of it. I am very proud to be a part of that movement. Positive behavioral reinforcement and ABA. And I'm not talking old school ABA. ABA, don't let them bullshit you, do still use aversive therapies. The aversives that they use, though, is essentially, I'm going to remove this bar of soap that you really like the smell of and replace it with this piece of crap soap until you behave neurotypical enough long enough to earn back the soap that you already own. As you can see, it has its own issues, but it is not the physical punishment that the JRC is doling out. That is current medical practice in regards to dealing specifically with neurodivergent folk, okay? Case studies in regards to those with mental health issues. If I were to go to any of the psychologists in town and ask them if it was a good idea to hook up someone who has post traumatic stress disorder to an electric shock machine that would shock them just below the lethal limit, do you have any idea of the crap that would come out of their mouth as soon as I even represented that as an idea? Because remember, folks, they're not just treating autistics with this. We're dealing with a bunch of other different diagnoses, including several different folks who suffer from mental health issues, including post traumatic stress disorder. You don't have a large case study of people putting folks with PTSD on shock devices is because most people like to live after they see their consumer after an appointment. I'm not trying to demonize PTSD because I have a very freaking, screw it, fucking severe case of PTSD. But you could see how that could go very horribly wrong, right? There's not even a case study in regards to treating someone with that particular diagnosis in such a way. Whereas there is tons of other information in regards to current practice in dealing with PTSD in regards to proper medication, proper therapy, and counseling than there is, well, with the insanity that the JRC tries to push. Again, it's not biased, it's facts. We're going to go ahead and close out on that one, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, if you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit those comments. I appreciate your time this afternoon. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. I'll see you again in a few minutes.